Good morning. Here we are talking about personal brands live on LinkedIn. And I don't mean to brag at all, but here I am at 10 a.m. in South Africa, Cape Town, doing the LinkedIn Live. And Sapna is in London. We were just commenting how it's still a little bit dark in London, and we've got a sunny day that started here in Cape Town. Sapna will be introducing herself in just a moment, but just while I have you all here, please let me know, what is your relationship with your personal brand? Why are you here? Is it that you want to know what a personal brand is? Are you looking to refine your personal brand? Perhaps you're looking on behalf of your company. How can you elevate some of your team and their personal brands? So I've got some comments here just coming through. So if you don't mind just leaving me a comment, and then Sapna and I can make sure that as we go, we're answering questions and we're really able to talk about the things that matter to you. So just while those comments are coming through, Sapna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me. So I'm Sapna Puru. I'm a personal and business brand consultant, author and speaker. My book, Let's Get Visible, that's it there, came out in 2020 and won a Business Book Award for Startup Inspiration. So I've got a vision process in that book, which is all about building business brands. But in the last couple of years, people were starting to come to me. In fact, it was mainly this year. People were coming to me and saying, can you help me with my personal brand? I don't need a rebrand. I don't need, kind of logos, colors, fonts. And so I've kind of leaned into that, because I was like, well, why are you coming to me? But they said, no, you've built a really solid personal brand. We want to understand how to do that. And then I kind of looked at my methodology and realized that it worked for that. So I've adapted it. So I now work with leaders, teams, corporates and entrepreneurs, and help them to stand out and show up with clarity and confidence to increase their influence and impact, and of course their income.
Amazing.
As well.
And I think that we should probably just give you a little plug for a moment, because you're doing a 6-month course, aren't you?
Yeah, it's starting in January, and I've got some wonderful women signed up to it already. So I'm going to be previewing that course next Friday. So if anybody wants to come along, I'm sure you'll be able to share the link for that. But it's next Friday at 1 p.m. UK time.
Great. So look out for that link in the comments. I'm sure that will be coming through soon. So personal brand. I know that sometimes when you talk about personal brand, you get a little bit of an eye roll sometimes. And I think that whatever you call it, like we all have one, right? A personal brand. So what would you say a personal brand is, Sapna?
Well, yeah, we all have one, whether we like the concept of it or not, whether we like the name of it or not. Everybody's got a personal brand, and it's basically, Jeff Bezos famously said that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's what people think about you. It's your reputation. It's how they talk about you. It's what you're known for, not just your expertise, but kind of, oh, she's a good sort, or she's really fun to work with, or it's kind of like, it's about your professional persona. It's not about me as a mum, for example, or me as a wife, or it is very much about your personal brand is about your professional persona, your reputation, how you want to be recognized, remembered, and recommended to others. And so that builds trust, obviously, in your capabilities, in your expertise, and it gives people a reason to choose. So it's all of that, and being very intentional about
it. I think that so what you want to be known for is a really important question with all of this. So I wonder if for some people who are listening to this, there might be a disconnect between what they want to be known for and what they are actually known for, and whether they may need a little bit of fine tuning to really be putting themselves out there for what they want to be known for. One thing I have done, I don't know how many people on the call have done this, I'd be really interested to hear if you've done this, is looked up your name on AI. Because
or Google yourself in the old world. When did Google become old school? But yeah.
And I was quite relieved when I AI'd my name. And please don't do it, anybody out there, in case it picks up something different. Yeah, don't all go AIing my name. But is AIing a verb? I'm not sure it is just yet.
It
but
is now. It is now.
heard it here first. Yeah, just get onto AI and put in your name and just find out what comes up. And if that's not what you want to be known for, you need to be really looking at where that's coming from. And I think a lot of the time it's your LinkedIn profile, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also worth doing it on Google, because obviously you get a series of links, and so you've got to be aware of what's going on page one of your search for Google as well. Because I remember when I started out 9 years ago. I mean, I've been 30 years working with brands, but 20 years in corporate. And when you're in corporate, you don't think about your personal brand as much, or certainly didn't 10 years ago. But nowadays it's the thing. But I think the entrepreneur world has kind of driven that a little bit. And you think about big companies like Virgin or Tesla. I've sort of got coughing there because Elon Musk. Yeah, he's got an interesting personal brand, hasn't he? But then you sort of like think of Richard Branson and kind of Oprah Winfrey or Michelle Obama. They've all got really strong personal brands, and if there is a company attached, they're bigger than the company. Their brand is bigger than the company, right? And that's why it's really important. And that's why it's really grown in the last few years. But when I started out like 9 years ago, and if I Googled myself when I started out, I had like TripAdvisor reviews of restaurants and things like that. It was just it's not how I wanted to be known as an entrepreneur, as a brand builder. And so you kind of work to make sure that you're appearing on, well, we'll talk about that later, about how we work to get more visible. But you have to be intentional about it. Otherwise, it's that thing about what do you want to be known for when people Google you or AI you.
Yeah. And it can be a tricky place to start. It's quite a big question. What do I want to be known for? I know when we interview people to recreate their LinkedIn profiles, that's one of the key questions that we would ask. What do you want to be known for? And some people know immediately and others don't. And it's okay if they don't, but it does take a little bit of coaching to try to work out what that might be. I think one of the ways when we're really struggling with that is we look back through the career and where there are moments of sort of quite big change, we would ask, what made you go from that to that? What were the reasons? Sometimes you can be pulling out things that people value. And I think very often finding out what people value, and that could be something that's remained true at the beginning of your career to the end of your career, can be a really good place to start. And it can sound a bit like a CV if it's all value. So you do need those specific examples of when you've, played that value out. And so that's the sort of thing that we're always looking for in a LinkedIn profile optimization. But what else would you recommend, the sort of deep searching, how people can work out, what they want to be known for?
Well, the first couple of steps of my vision process, which was the methodology I came up with in the book, is visualize and inner brand. And so if I can just sort of summarize the things that we cover when I'm working with a client, we'll look at visualize, which is there's three sort of elements of that. There's kind of like the big picture, that what do you want to be known for thing. I've actually forgotten the first one, which was the FAB brand. So I asked people to actually do a FAB exercise, which is 5 aspirational brands. And to actually look at, if you can't think about it for yourself, it's very easy sometimes to look at other personal brands and go, God, that they've got an amazing personal brand. I want to be more like them. It's not about copying them. It's about finding out what lights you, what resonates for you, what you find admirable. So I sort of did a post about it earlier this week about Michelle Obama, for example. For me, is an amazing personal brand, and it's about her ethics, but it's also about her sense of humor and humanity, and she's really down to earth, and she's caring, and all of these things are kind of stuff that's really important to me as well. So we kind of look at those 5 aspiration brands, pull out those bits of the threads, if you like, that kind of really resonate for you, and that kind of starts to formulate the kind of personal brand that you want to create. Then we look at that bit about what do you want to be known for, and what's your your personal brand vision, if you like, for the next 3 to 5 years. And we set that intention, we kind of create what that will be. And also then we talk about the customer avatar. So who are your ideal customers and what do you want them to be saying about you? Why are they going to be recommending you? What are they going to be saying about you to their mates or to their colleagues, or, you know, when they're referring you? And start to pick out some of the language that customers are using about us as well. Just to put that other lens on it and not think about what I think about myself. It's about what others are thinking about me and take myself out of that.
Yeah.
So that's all part of visualize, and that sets the big vision. Then we look at inner brand, which is kind of the heart and soul and the emotional connection, which is, you know, what I do with business brands, but it's even more important with the personal brand. How do people feel about you and when they're around you and when they're not around you? So then we look at your values, which we've mentioned, we've touched on. And I always say, focus on between 3 to 7 values. You don't want any more, you know, than 7, because it becomes hard to communicate it, certainly. So go for an average of 5. And those are the core values that are your non-negotiables. Like, how do you run, you know, that's really, really, and that will help you make choices as well in the future as to the things that you align with. Certainly if you were looking for another role or another challenge, it helps you kind of align that when you're true to your values, and it helps you feel happier ultimately in the role that you're in, if you're feeling that you're in a role that aligns with your personal values as well. We then look at the brand personality and the brand voice. Now that's obviously going to be very, very close for yourself if it's going to be that. But I always say we've got very different personalities. When you were at a karaoke bar last night, Laura, I was at a Ben Elton gig. We're different personality with our friends and our partners and our children than we are, in the professional environment. So it's about curating what part of your personality. It's not about reinventing yourself, but it's about what parts of my personality do I want to show up. From a professional point of view, what's that tone of voice going to sound like as well? So what language do you use? What language do we not use? And it's just being more mindful of that. And that also helps, obviously, if you've got a company, brand as well, that you align your personal brand with the elements of the company brand that kind of marry. So you are looking in the same direction.
Yeah, the company versus personal brand, we are challenged by that topic. Most days. It's I would say that, we're talking about personal brands in general here, but with a little bit of a lens on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, you've got this brilliant, rich profile page, and it's really a way that you can be really, you can resonate very personally from there, but yet so many people lack that personality on their personal profile, because they think that it's there for my company, and how do you sort of balance that company brand with personal brand, like particularly on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think it's quite a tough one with employers, and certainly the more forward-thinking employers are starting to realise the power of personal brand for their employees, because it's a way of kind of employee advocacy, if you like. It's a way of, one of my friends, actually, Sarah Clay, wrote a book about that, but she's it's about the fact that when your employees are showing up and talking about the amazing work they're doing and talking about the amazing things going on in at their workplace, or it might be a company night out, it might we went out, we did this charity event, or or so and so, my boss ended up speaking at this amazing event that we all got invited to. It could be any aspect of it, not just like today I sat behind my desk, although we've got a great story about that, which we'll talk about it later. But it just reflects the company in a really good light. Also, company pages don't get the same engagement as employee pages, and I think the LinkedIn stat was 28 times. You get 28 times more engagement on your employee page than you do your company page. Now, however many employees you've got, start to multiply that. If you've got 2, 4, 10, 100 employees, the power of those personal brands in actually conveying what the company is up to, and getting those personalities across, and that it's a vibrant, fun place to work, and that people are allowed to show their personalities, and they are allowed to show their diversity, and they are allowed to be human at work. That actually only reflects really well on the employer.
Yeah.
And I've got that story that I was telling you about earlier. I was like, I've got no, tell them about the nails. But there was a lady on LinkedIn who went viral earlier this year, and I'm sorry I couldn't find the post to share, but you might have seen it because it did go viral. And it was a lady in South Africa who posted a picture of her hands on her keyboard, and she said, "Can anyone tell what's wrong with this picture? Sorry about the bad nail job." Apart from the bad nail job, her nails were growing out. It wasn't a bad nail job. And then she goes on to tell a story about how she'd cut her hand earlier this day. She cut her thumb earlier that day, and she'd gone to the work first aid kit, first aider, and they opened up the plaster box, and she said, "I've never felt so seen," because in that there was a whole range of skin tones. And this lady was of African origin, and you had to look again at the at the photo, because actually she had a plaster, but it was a dark plaster that blended in with her skin tone. And she said, "This, guys, is what diversity is. This is diversity inclusion. This is exactly what it feels like. I've never felt so seen." That post went viral. That post went absolutely viral. She was a PA. She'd been at that company for a couple of months when she did that post, and it blew up. I actually contacted her and I was like, "What was the impact to the business?" I wanted to know, was there an impact? She went, "Absolutely." And she got a little reward for it as well. But what happened was that the inquiries went through the roof to this company, and it was not just people who wanted to work with them. They were a law firm, not just people that wanted to work with them, but people who wanted to work for them as well. So that was, a really important point. There's also the fact that if you've got a diverse team across different countries and different parts of the country, it helps them to get to know each other in a lovely way, if they're all posting and sharing what they've been doing in their roles in their part of the world as well. So that's another reason to have your employees visible on LinkedIn, because they get to know each other as well.
Yeah, it's really good for employee engagement, isn't it? I've got a question here. If I can add that to the I don't know whether you can see this, so I'll just read it out.
No, I haven't got. Well, my glasses. You've got the screen's gone really small.
I'll read it.
So it says, "Yeah, cool." I can read it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you uncover your values? Is there a tool or test that you could recommend, or maybe some other way? Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Oh yes. Well, when I do it with clients at the moment, I do it through interviewing them, and I ask them about what their journey is. You just sort of, there's probably an AI tool for that. And I haven't actually looked at that. For me, it has been a very personal service so far. But it's about finding that golden thread of the things that have always lit you up, that you tell your story to yourself, like write out your story, it could just be on notes or whatever, but actually talk about your career and then find the common threads that are coming through, and they will often point the way to your values. That there are some values that there are things that you will always do, or things that you will never do, and that you wouldn't compromise your values for. But I think it's useful to chat it over with a friend or somebody that knows you well, or a colleague that knows you well, and that even in that conversation they'll highlight things and then reflect things back to you. And that's really what I do with clients anyway. I kind of go, "Oh, well, I see." Sometimes it's hard to see it for yourself as well. So I think it's actually quite useful to have that in a coaching space, or just reflected back to you in a conversation. It was funny actually, when I was writing my book, one of my friends actually said to me, she went, "Isn't it funny that your dad was an eye surgeon and he wanted you to be an optician? This is nothing about values, it's just about somebody reflecting something back to you. And he wanted you to be an optician." That's why I've got his eye test chart there in the background. But I rebelled and went to art college. And she said, "But you became a brand consultant." So he was helping people see. You help people get seen. Your book's called Let's Get Visible, and the symbol for it is an eye. And I just went, "Oh!" I hadn't even made the connection between my dad being an eye surgeon and the symbol for my vision process being an eye. So it's really useful to have that as a conversation.
Yeah. Actually, one of the questions I would ask when coaching on the LinkedIn profile is, it's usually one of those questions when I'm really stuck and I, don't know what else to, how we can try and pull something out. What do your colleagues say about you? If they were talking about you behind your back, how would they introduce you? So we've got another question here. LinkedIn is so saturated with posts from all types of mediums, from individuals and brands. What are the most effective methods to building your brand on LinkedIn? Great question. Thank you, Anna.
Very great question. And it's increasingly hard to stand out, isn't there? There's like 1 billion people on LinkedIn now. So what is that, an eighth of the planet? That's quite a lot, isn't it? And it's very easy to kind of think, oh, well, my little post, it's quite, the other stat that blows my actual mind is that in terms of scrolling, we scroll the height of Mount Everest every 20 days. Isn't that insane?
Wow.
Isn't that insane? That's a statistic fact. So, so it's hard to think, well, if I put a post out there, how am I going to show up and how am I going to stand out? And this is why the part that where we work on the visualize and the inner brand is getting the real threads out. So you kind of get really clear on your messaging. The next stages are, stand out and image. So stand out is about things like what is going to make you stand out from your competitors in terms of awards won. Now, this can be from a corporate or an individual level. Things like awards won, white papers or books written. If you've talked on a stage, get speaking engagements, talk on a podcast, get yourself more visible in those kind of ways. Employees, doing charity events. I sort of talked about charity events before. So what does your company do from a CSR kind of point of view? Talk about those things. And personal brands aren't built overnight. It's not going to happen with a one shot, with one post and suddenly everything's going to, it did blow up for that PA, but not every shot's going to go, not every post is going to go viral. It's rare, the ones that do. So it's about consistent actions over time. No personal brand is built overnight. And so it's about showing up consistently so that you're there when your potential client is looking for that thing, you are top of mind, as opposed to everybody else. If you've built your brand accordingly to your values and your personal vision and the company vision, and then you've got that standout level as well. And when we move to image, we then talk about, by the way, what your LinkedIn looks like, what your socials look like. It's not all about LinkedIn. So some people would want to build a personal brand on other platforms as well. But today we're focusing on LinkedIn. And it's also how you show up. What are you wearing? We're both wearing kind of almost matching dresses today, Laura. We both got the patterned dress memo. But it's what you wear when you turn up. It's the framing of your Zoom room. It's what you wear when you go to a networking event, or it's how you show. Where are you having those meetings with clients? When you meet a client in real life, you're not going to be signing a $100,000 deal in McDonald's. You're going to take them to somewhere nice and buying them lunch. And so it's about framing every aspect of your business in terms of standing out. And then take a selfie, put it on there, sort of talk about it, talk about the things that you're doing anyway. But it's just, people love a face on LinkedIn, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And they love it. And it's hard. I know it's hard and it doesn't feel very natural, but it's a habit, like any habit, that you've just got to get into every now and again. Not for everything, but people love images of people, and images work really, really well on LinkedIn. So if it's not necessarily of you, then you and your other colleagues, or it could just be, I attended this great Zoom session, and take a screen grab of the Zoom session with all the faces on it. It doesn't have to be you, yourself, and you all the time,
Yeah. Well, you could do a LinkedIn Live, of course, and
you could do a LinkedIn Live.
I remember when I first did some videos, and they would take quite a long time. And I was at a talk with it was Uplift Live this year, and Gillian Whitney, who has every week done a LinkedIn Live. She's moved on more recently, but she was been doing LinkedIn Lives for a long time. She said something that really resonated. how long does it take to do a video? Because you're retaking it and making it perfect. And before you know it, it's taken you hours to do this really small video. With LinkedIn Live, there's no editing. It just goes out there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so, you
can't overthink it. Yeah, exactly.
And formats as well. I think that I'm sort of aware that we're on 25 minutes. I know you need to. You're.
Don't worry.
we always like to get the value in, and but when it comes to formats, I think that standing out, just back to Anna's question, how do you stand out across the noise? There's a lot of AI generated written content, and if you can put a video out, just like an image tells 1,000 words. If you've ever met anybody at an event, you want to sort of keep front of mind, there's no better way than some video formats, because we meet so many people online every day, and you're very easily forgotten. And so if you can get yourself back onto LinkedIn in some sort of video, whether it's LinkedIn Live or not, I think it just really helps you to stay visible.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So,
the portrait format that we're doing this LinkedIn Live in is another way of standing out, because the short form videos that LinkedIn are really promoting at the moment are these kind of portrait videos. We're experimenting, aren't we, today, by doing a long form portrait video and seeing what that will do. So yeah, be experimental. Don't be afraid to try something, because remember, it's the height of Mount Everest that people are scrolling every 20 days. So if you make a mistake as well, it'll be the equivalent of yesterday's chip shot papers or whatever. It's old news, so you can make a mistake and iterate and get better. So just don't be afraid to start.
Yeah. It feels like that's a brilliant sort of closing remark there, Sapna, is actually, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just making a start is the most important thing. I will let you know in the comments whether this portrait video does perform better than my other LinkedIn Live. So anybody else that's been watching it can sort of be aware whether they should be doing portrait. There are more people on mobile phones on LinkedIn, and the app is very popular. I believe that on average globally, there are 46 visits to the LinkedIn app every month. So that's they are very good with the notifications. You do find yourself going in there quite a lot, and before you know it, you've scrolled. Any other takeaways from you, Sapna? Because I think you've given us amazing advice on how to get started with the personal brand, and I think we could probably talk for twice as long. But let's.
There's so much to cover. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a whole 6-month course, haven't I? So there is a lot to cover. But one of the things that we didn't touch on, and I think is really important, is when people land on your profile page, what's that first impression that you're giving people? So that's a combination of your headshot, obviously. I'm sure you've talked about that many times before, Laura. But make sure it's up to date. That I've met people before, and they've got headshots that are like 5-10 years old. And it was like, well, you don't actually look like that anymore. so it's a bit like when you go on dating apps or whatever. It's just sort of like, make sure it's up to date. And certainly from a company point of view, if you've got headshots across, make sure that your team have got up to date headshots as well. That banner at the back, that banner is such a prime piece of real estate. And the amount of companies, especially that I see, that are not using it, and it's just got that LinkedIn blue wishy-washy thing going on. So have, a company banner there, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening, have something that's got a call to action up there as well. Something that's going to tell people what you do, the value that you bring, and that's a prime piece of real estate there. And then make sure that you're about, and your, the info underneath your name is talking more about what you can do for others rather than actually what you do and how fantastic you are. So tell me what you're doing for me. It's that whole what's in it for me as a reader, and make the intro section about that as well. But there's so much to cover in there that we couldn't possibly get it all done in here. But it is that first impression, because you've only got 6 seconds to make that great first impression, and then people click away. So that's one of the ways that you can start getting memorable and being seen and getting visible, is doing that up there as well.
Yeah. Just made me think about social proof. There's a new feature on the LinkedIn profile. It's a premium feature, sorry, for anybody who's not on Premium or Sales Navigator, where you can pin to your featured section a testimonial, which is really great. Yeah.
So I've done that actually. I didn't realize that was just a premium thing, but yeah, that featured section is really important for any awards you've won, any qualifications that you've got, any, kind of training that you've done, but testimonials are brilliant to put those in there as well. And again, it's just about sharing those stories, and, keeping that consistency up, across, and employers have got to understand that actually this is part of the marketing mix now. So it's not about employees wasting time on LinkedIn. It's about getting the company visible, and about making connections and connecting with future clients and potential clients and existing clients, and having those conversations in the comments, in DMs, not spamming them, not pitch slapping them, but just actually building relationships like you would if you were going into a networking room, having those conversations. Yeah.
I've absolutely loved our chat. Thank you so much for joining my LinkedIn Live. I am very tempted by your course, so we might be seeing each other a lot more over the next 6 months.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So let me just do the outro, and I will say goodbye. Have a wonderful day in London. Keep warm. See you next time.
Thank you. I'm going to have